Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today, oh boy, I can't tell you how excited I am. This has been something that I have been, I don't even know if I want to say kind of teasing at, but it's actually been something that a number of you have been asking me about, and I have been doing my darnest, my best to be able to reach out and make some connections, and we're finally getting this to fruition. And we have with us two amazing community members from the Farlight Lilith team. Joining us today, we have Asya and Leo. Just a quick, golf clap, a very fast golf clap, we should say. Asya and Leo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, boss. Happy to be here.
Okay. Let's get into it first. Since Leo was the first gentleman to respond to us, Asya, we're going to start with your lovely self. I have to say, first and foremost, that I want to try to have us get to a lot today. Number one, and this has to be the first thing I ask both of you, but Asya, for you first, who came up with this idea, which I think is just so well done, on the bloopers that you guys include at the end of some of the YouTube videos where you guys are kind of going over some of the patch notes or kind of giving us some first looks? Was it something that was kind of a collaborative effort of, hey, we'd love to include some of these? Or was it more of, what, we're going through the footage and these are just absolutely hilarious? Because I will say this, I love them, and I think it's very relatable to the community as well. But can you maybe tell us, at least from your perspective, how did that come about?
I think that came out pretty naturally, organically. When we just started doing those videos, we weren't really experienced, and we had a lot of takes that we couldn't use. And then I think when we were putting the video together, we were just like, yeah, why not? Let's just try. We just put one blooper, and then people really liked it. And I think since then it just became like a tradition for us.
Okay. No, I absolutely love it. And I guess, Leo, from your perspective on when you guys are going through that, given that you've now done a couple of these videos and there's been a couple of bloopers that has been included there. When you're going through and you're filming, is it, because to be honest, the bloopers, I will say, I think they're absolutely hilarious. I love them. Is it something where you almost know, like, hey, if I did this, you think to yourself, oh no, that take, that one that I just did is absolutely going to get in there because it was just me fumbling or stumbling? Is there kind of any thought that you have when you're going through, when you're recording those and you guys are doing your takes where it's, oh no, this one stood out, and or is it even to a point where maybe you think to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to go all in on this, and if it just ends up being funny, like, I'm not going to stop halfway, I'll just kind of stumble along?
Yeah, absolutely. Every take, I tried my best not to laugh because a lot of times we're in the atmosphere or we're in a zone where we try to present ourselves to the players with the information we have, right? So we try to make it as professional as possible, but it's really hard to do it when we have someone like we were basically friends. So when we uh, talk, basically when we try to look in each other's eyes to present these facts, it's quite hard to not laugh. Um, but yeah, we try to be as smooth as possible to just try and save the camera battery for the cameraman itself as well. And yeah, these sometimes it would take like 10 takes just to make a really good footage. So yeah.
Yeah, the bloopers is more like after the shooting, we sit down and sort out the cuts. And usually we have more bloopers than the actual cuts
Sometimes
that are usable.
yeah, sometimes it would just be like the script could be quite wordiness, and then we would try to kind of make it more concise. Um, but it turns out that like it would just be really kind of funny to just read it out loud, so I just couldn't control myself and just
Yeah.
yeah, that's where a lot of bloopers came about.
Oh no, I love it. So tell me, so before we transition to my next one for you, who's the jokester? Who's the one that's really trying to make the other person laugh, or maybe takes them a little bit longer to kind of get into their serious mode between the two of you?
It's pretty obvious. It's Leo.
Well, I mean,
She's throwing you under now.
we also have to give the credit to one of our cameramen, Alex.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alex. He's officially one of our vendors that we work with for video filming, videography, and yeah, he's a blast to work with.
Oh no, that's awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first. Leo needs to be a little more serious during those takes. We all heard it here. So let me transition now to how you guys kind of got your start. I'm very curious. I know I had an opportunity to do a interview with Rusty Max, and I had an absolute blast with him, just kind of getting to know his background, his upbringing, how he kind of got into moderating, and I thought it was a nice kind of deep dive into the moderating field for, Discord itself as it pertains to, big games, or even if it's just larger communities that may not necessarily be gaming related. But I guess, Asya, if we can maybe start with you, I'm curious on, how did you kind of get your start as far as it pertains? And I guess, for yourself, I know in Leo's case, it's a little bit more kind of specialized with him kind of focusing more on player experience and a number of things. We'll get to that in a moment. But for you, Asya, it's more of content for the community, having close creations with the players. And can you just kind of walk us through, what your role is there at Lilith Farlight, and then if you can maybe let us know, how did you get started? How did you actually get to a point where you end up joining this company?
hmm Yeah, like my responsibilities here within Lilith and Farlight is I'm mostly responsible for content. So it's the patch notes, it's the content throughout the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of this. The events that we do for our community. Yeah, with Leo, where I honestly think I couldn't ask for a better and more perfect colleague slash work bestie. Yeah, we're pretty like I do content, he does the player assessment, and that's basically I think two main directions, right, of a community. And we both also just talk with the players here on Discord. Yeah, how I ended up in gaming. Actually, I've never thought I'll be doing gaming. I played games when I was like a teenager, and then I kind of went away from it. And as a foreign student here in China, I just got an opportunity to do an internship at a company called IGG. They
Hmm.
do Lords. It was in 2018, I think. Yeah, I did internship when like just for 1 month, and I realized how cool is that. Like it's just all people are so young, fresh, and just like they have so many creative ideas, and that gave me an idea that like I want to try gaming. And I came to Lilith as an intern, basically, October 2019, and since then I'm here. It's been almost 5 years now. Yeah, like time flies so fast. Yeah.
Wow. And I guess when you started out as an intern there, what and again, if you can say or not, but I guess I'm curious as far as what were I guess what did you start out? Kind of how was that journey from how you started, and then to the point of what you're doing now?
Right. When I came as an intern here, I would mostly just people would ask me to select winners from some Facebook events. Something really like simple, routine. And one thing that like my supervisor back then, I was in Cheesecake interns. Cheesecake is our boss. So basically, like, he would tell me like, "Hey, go talk on Discord with the players." But I don't know why, for some reason, I was scared of talking on Discord because I had this like kind of image that like, oh, people think that I'm a community manager and I should know everything about the game, or like I shouldn't say anything stupid on like in general chat. And I was just scared. I
Yeah.
wouldn't talk at all because I was like pretty new to the game and the community. But then later, I think it took me actually quite a while, right? I didn't really talk on Discord back then. It was Rise of Kingdoms community. And I was just, people would know me as like always typing person and never actually sending a message
It's funny you
in
say
general.
that because I remember, and I'm sure you notice this too as well, is anytime you would say something in Gen Chat, on the Call of Dragons Discord, there was a few times where you'd say hi to a few of us, you said hi to me, and then it almost kind of seems like it's that funny rhetoric that we have now, where it's like, oh my god, a wild Asya appears, right? That kind of becomes you're like a wild Pokemon essentially, a legendary creature that just appears every once in a while, and everyone's always happy and excited to see that.
Yeah, I think like in general, I'm very like online communications. I have to make an extra effort to do that. Even like replying my friends on like usually like WhatsApp, Instagram.
She's really bad with messages.
Yes, and doing all these on Discord, like honestly, I'm doing an extra effort here.
Yeah, no. Leo's like a first-hand experience over here. I know exactly what
Yeah.
that is like trying to get a hold of her. But okay, no, thank you for that, Leo. Let's switch gears. How about for you? How did you get how did you get your start? Well, I guess first off, if you can let us know, what do you do at the company, and obviously if there's anything that maybe some players may not necessarily be familiar with, and how did you kind of get your start?
Sure. So obviously we're both community managers, but I'm more specialized in the aspect of player experience, which means my main responsibilities are more or less maintaining the constant communication with you guys, and also trying to build a stable and positive environment for everybody to just enjoy. So on the side note, I also have to recognize, also understand the player sentiment in terms of certain game issues, and making sure like your voice has been heard and delivered, and potentially solved by our dev team from Lego. So there's that. I'm also responsible for managing and operating the community platforms on Discord, and also responsible for hosting community meetup events. Last year in November, we hosted one in Germany. Um, Maybe next time you can join us as well. And yeah, I'm also keep in mind I'm actually doing these for both Call of Dragons and Rise of Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And speaking of how I got in, how I joined Lilith Games, I have to go way back. So, so I've been actually studied and lived in the United States for 12 years. And I graduated in 2020, in around May of 2020, and uh, when I first when I first got back home in China, I didn't really know what to do, to be honest, because I actually studied international relations and international politics for my studies, and I really wanted to join something like of a think tank or a non-profit organizations to start my career with. But on a side note, I was always a hardcore gamer. I always played first-person shooters like PUBG and Call of Duty, and I
Uh-huh.
spent over thousands of hours playing those games. So yeah, it was kind of a opportunity for me as well when I first saw the opportunity, like internship opportunity for Lilith Games on community management. I decided to apply. Showed up to an interview where I met Cheesecake. We had a brief chat. He felt pretty good about selecting me to be his intern. So that's how I got in. And speaking of how I started, it was really it is quite funny now to think of it because back then we were in charge of the Rise of Kingdoms community, right? And my first task joining Lilith was to create 100 questions, 100 trivia questions about the game when I first joined. So it was more like a crash course for me to just learn everything about the game itself. So I had the help of the whole moderation team. I had the help of Cheesecake. I had the help of Asya to just help me to learn a lot within such short amount of time.
Wow, man, 100 questions of a quiz in RoK for your very first
Yeah.
task. It sounds as though they threw you into the fire, which is probably saying the least. But given you're still here, it seems as though you didn't get burned too much. We're a little only just a little crispy. It seems like so. We're happy to, of course, still have you. Let me move along here, and I guess one of my big questions as it pertains, and I think this is something that obviously depending on how much you might be able to speak on, but you did mention that one of your tasks, Leo, just to come back to you here for a sec, is about kind of taking feedback and then communicating said feedback from those to the team. Can you tell us, and I know the process has changed a little bit on Discord, at least as it pertains to the suggestions channel, where now it is where, from how it's been explained, right, where you get 50 upvotes on a suggestion, and then that will basically kind of go on to the next stage, and in essence, eventually be communicated at some point in time with the team. But could you kind of take us through that process, even if it's just 4 or 5 steps on, once a suggestion reaches that threshold of the amount of votes that it needs, what happens with it, how long maybe on average, or better yet, are those filtered at some point? Like, does someone look over those? Do they filter them to kind of go against things that have maybe already been submitted? Or if there's already, because I would imagine some upvotes, there's typically multiple suggestions at any given time that can be duplicates of other suggestions that have already reached the upvote threshold. So what does that process look like from kind of once it's upvoted and it's met that threshold up until it potentially reaches the COD team?
Sure. So generally, there are 2 categories that we want to discern of these suggestions. So one is on a more of a urgent manner, like say we found out there's a huge amount of upvotes within say 24 hours. That means the suggestions, the issue itself is urgent, right? So we're trying to bring the devs' attention to these issues immediately. Say it could be a game-breaking bug, or players experiencing that the certain event is not working. So we'll try to immediately notify our dev team immediately and just let them fix it. So there's one. And the second one is more on a monthly basis, where we will monthly collect the suggestions, either 50 upvotes or not. We're always looking over every suggestions. Actually, we have our colleague Eric. As I'm not sure if you know him. He's also a community manager. He's actually our intern, and he's the one responsible for collecting these
Okay.
suggestions, and basically filter out the duplicate ones, or just filter out some troll comments, and making sure that these suggestions are actually quite important to the community itself. And then ultimately we'll collect these, translate these, because our dev team is actually from China too. So we are translating these into Chinese language and letting them know what's going on. And then in response, they will be responding to these suggestions point to point, where sometimes it might got the information itself could be data related or data sensitive. So we could not really, basically, we cannot really show these to the players because of there's a data um, related to this. So there's that, and actually there's another. I'm not sure if this is something that we want to openly discuss, but actually our producer for Call of Dragons has been super attentive to the community. He actually reads every suggestions, and
Oh,
sometimes he would even lurk in our general chat. So be careful of bad mouthing. I'm
okay.
just kidding. Speak whatever. Yeah.
No. That's great, and I think obviously for someone like myself, who is very much a purveyor and an enjoyer of data-driven content for a lot of the data that I do on my own. I would imagine as well for others, probably more so. What we may come to find would be more along the lines of like alliance management personnel, right? So like leads, officers, people, even people that essentially do data, right, for their alliances. I think those individuals probably more so than maybe just the average player, is more likely, I would imagine, to be interested in those types of things, and in others for that matter. And I think it's understandable on some of those things that you were saying that are data sensitive, of course, depending on what is or not shared. But no, thank you for that. I really appreciate you being able to, even if it's just diving a little bit into that, because clearly there's some things that you said that already, for me is being able to learn a little bit more things that we just didn't already know. So that's absolutely fantastic. Asya, let me come back to your lovely self. And when it comes to you doing content with the players and socials, what is something that what's something that you do that may not necessarily be seen, or maybe players just do not know about, but it's something that you think, from what you do on your end, really helps out the community, or really puts a good light towards the community in some way, even if it's something that maybe the community itself doesn't really know because they just don't either pay attention close enough, or it's not something that they're just privy to in general.
Yeah, like first of all, I know that like in terms of content, the one that players like the most, the community like the most is, let's say, like the preview of the new content, right? And for example, that one to be like the patch notes video, for example, update videos. What players see is just the picture and information on social media, right? Or the video, let's say. But the behind the scenes of it is more like I need to make sure that this information goes out before the update. Otherwise, there is no real hype, right? Like if it's already in the game. Or and then getting the test server to get those information is another hustle. Like for example, the latest patch notes we weren't able to do the video if you noticed because we couldn't get the test version in time,
Yeah, I'm
basically.
crying on the inside, Asha. You should tell
Yeah.
them that
But
that's
like
big.
I like we personally always try to do like put out all this information, preview information before the update goes live. So like you guys have this opportunity to discuss things, right? Also like I mean for creators to hype things up, for example. And what I do personally, I sometimes talk to creators or I talk to like I just lurk the chat, see what players are discussing about and what information I can post to add on that discussion, for example. Because like I'm not that hardcore player as actual players on Discord here, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes I might just not be sensitive towards what information is actually really important to the community. So like talking to you guys, just checking the general chat, talking with the mods. Rusty Max is a great help, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
he's okay. You don't have to
like
hype him up too much, okay? We only like him
yeah,
about
like
50% of the time. Let's be honest.
yeah, like being the lead mod, like sometimes I would just go to him and ask some questions. Yeah, so like I think what I would say is just like players just see the post, the text, but amount of work and research that goes behind the scenes is actually pretty big. And like we're just really trying hard to bring all this info because I think besides us, like if we don't post this, actually no one gonna post it. Like give those information. So that is one thing. But what I personally like, let's say like I made content, I genuinely really, really like the feeling when people really discuss that. Let's say like for RoK, I think we first came out with this idea of posting the top 10 players, right? We've never really done it before. But then like we saw that like Facebook group people discuss this and I was like, hey, why don't we like go with official data, like top strong governors of the month, let's say, or like the KVK stats. We pulled that out and players were discussing it like everywhere, Discord, Facebook group, and I'm like that's when I feel like, oh, I made something good, if players discuss it. And that's what I like.
I love it. I mean, listen, just don't come for my job, okay? Thank you. But yeah, no, so it's funny on that note, right? And I've even noticed, at least for myself as a creator, when I really started getting a lot more into database content outside of the other content that I do, I very much love what data can show us. I like to view data as a way to tell a fuller story, to give us a fuller picture, to give us context on trying to understand why are we seeing something, and then why is something happening. Really kind of lets us dive into things. And when I started doing this, at least for my particular kind of data series and content back when I was playing Infinity Kingdom, and then eventually brought that over to what I did for Call of Dragons. Being able to see the video you guys did for the anniversary, where I'm like, oh wow, man, they're coming out with all the data right now, and there was a number of things there. And we were actually discussing this on the COD Discord in the VC, which obviously a huge shout out to all the people that join in on the VC. I don't know how it necessarily is for other games, but I love the fact that we see, on average daily or every other day, where there's, a group of 10, 20 of us, if not sometimes more,
Yeah.
who will just hop on voice chat and just, love talking about things about the game. But we were having a conversation about this I think it was a couple days ago, about the anniversary video and how there was a number of things in there. And one of the things, I think it was Himothy and maybe Rambo and a few others that were mentioning about the players who made it to T5 the fastest. And I think that the number one person was like 2.3 days or 2.5 days or just something just utterly ridiculous. And there was a few of them that were made it just more so in how fast, not this, again, people can spend whatever they want, but just the speed at which these things were done, and a number of other things. We just thought, hey, this was like an interesting thing to see. And for me, as someone who really enjoys seeing data, I really liked some of the angles that were mentioned, as far as the boards that were presented during the video. But let me switch gears a little bit here. So I'm curious, Leo, from your end, when it comes to the kind of player sentiments and delivering those things to the dev team. I know you said that you have some kind of international studies in politics. I would have to imagine that something like that, especially when you're dealing, or I should say when you're involved with a number of different players from all parts of the world, that has to have some kind of an impact, and I would imagine some kind of a help, even if it's just understanding, kind of nuances, whether that's in discussions or the way that people are coming across. But when it comes to kind of engagement with the community, when it comes to, as you said, right, kind of recognizing player sentiments, being able to deliver and convey those things to the team, has there ever been a thought? And I know Infinity Kingdom has done this. I actually had recorded this, I think, at least once that I was a part of it. But I know they've done something such as a kind of like dev team / community meetup. And what I remember about it when I participated in it for Infinity Kingdom is they grabbed, I think, about 8 or 10 players or so. There was some community, some content creators, and there were some people from the community. And they put them into like a private Discord, and there was a couple people from the dev team. Everything was text, of course, so they could translate. I know you had mentioned that earlier as far as when suggestions are being conveyed to the team, so that way they'll be able to read it in their native language. But has there ever, and I can say for myself, I at least very much enjoyed it. I found a lot of value in it, in being able to kind of, as you articulated a little earlier, being able to kind of bridge some of those gaps, right, in between the community and to the dev team. Has there ever been, I guess, any consideration, and I don't know if something like that has been done in RoK. I know there's been a couple things that I've seen and heard of, but has that ever been something that has been given any thought as it pertains to Call of Dragons, as a way of, hey, being able to hear from community members on particular subjects or issues or topics in either more of a real-time way, or being able to connect with the COD team, the devs, to kind of share different, I guess either insights or playing experiences, or just that, I guess, in general. Has there been any thought to that idea of potentially doing something like that, whether it is exactly that or something similar?
Yeah, we actually have something like that for Rise of Kingdoms already. It's called, we call it the Roundtable Discussions. We've held it in the RoK community for about 2 or 3 times, where we gather around we call it the core players, which is players that spend a lot of time in the community, or also players that are actually kings or R4s in their kingdoms that are concerned about certain game mechanics like the equipment system. So we gather them around, we set them up together with our dev team, and just hold a rounds and rounds of discussions, and we're there to facilitate that. And we're actually planning to do that for Call of Dragons as well. But we're just trying to find the right time and opportunity to do it right now. And speaking of, I think really helps to the roundtable discussions actually helped a lot in clarifying what the devs want, like their visions are, and they try to convey that to the players. And we're in response and in resonance, some players will find it to be quite helpful, where they, on the other hand, they are naturally will have some concerns, and there it's a perfect opportunity for them to voice their concerns out, and where we can also kind of help translate and convey their concerns to the dev team. So there's that. And speaking of like my background studies, so as I mentioned, I study international relations and political science for undergrad. It did help. I just feel like it's just in a different scale. For what I studied, it's more about what how nations interact, or nation states interact with each other, where there are some overlapping in there between communities, and it definitely helped me to navigate around that, to just make sure everybody is at a more content state, that the information is more or less transparent, to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay. No, I love it. Asha, let me come back to you. I'm curious, and Leo, I might have you chime in on this as well.
Sure.
Asha, have you, before Rise of Kingdoms, had you played any other kingdom builders, as I call them, but also city builders, 4X, SLS games before Rise of Kingdoms, or maybe even before it was ROC, before the rebrand to RoK? Have you played? I mean, well, I'm sorry, you did say Lords Mobile, so I probably should ask: have you played something before RoK and/or Lords Mobile, or was Lords Mobile or RoK kind of your first introduction into the subgenre?
Honestly, like I didn't play for a playing purpose, but when I was interning at IGG, we were working on a project like we had to build FAQ for Kingdom Builders. So for that purpose, I would just download a lot of games like Kingdom Builders, just for the research purpose. Yeah, but I actually started playing only after I joined Lilith. Yeah.
Okay. So this is fascinating. So I don't know if either of you have seen the video I did where I looked at the top kingdom builders on the 200 on the App Store for the top 200 grossing, and I basically compared all. I basically downloaded and played all these games, or I would watch videos on them, and I basically picked apart out of the top 200 games on the strategy genre. I went through all these 200 games, and I basically looked at all the ones that were kingdom builders, and I put them on a list. And then I did a video about concurrent viewers. So like out of all, or not concurrent viewers, excuse me, concurrent players. So which of these games have the highest concurrent players at the moment? And I think I put that out last month, about a month ago. And Call of Dragons was there, and I think there was about 92 games, 92 or 93 kingdom builders that are on the top 200 grossing, specifically for the US. And I was able to look at a particular data set that shows the concurrent players for which games have the most and the least, and then being able to go back 8 months as well. So you could see the trends and like which ones were growing, which ones were losing. But my point is to add on to what you were saying, I absolutely love that, because I'm very much an enjoyer of being able to research and kind of educate oneself. And I'm curious, this kind of leads into my big question is, when Call of Dragons, and I don't know obviously how much involvement you and Leo may or may not have had in Call of Dragons development, or as far as like how much maybe you knew while it was happening prior to release or even prior to beta, but did you have any idea as far as the kind of uniqueness of the features and kind of how Call of Dragons was either doing it on purpose or just trying to kind of differentiate itself in unique ways from Rise of Kingdoms, and the fact that Call of Dragons had this potential to really be doing things a cut above other games in the genre. Like, was there anything that when you looked at that said, you know what, there is something special here with what the game is offering versus its peers in the market?
So I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've been playing Call of Dragons before beta, and I actually quite enjoy playing the combat experience itself, primarily where you can just use artifact skills from the palm of your hand, and there's a lot of versatility around that also in terms of troop development and just troop placement. So we call it legions, but yeah. So I actually feel like the ranged combat is really good in differentiating itself from Rise of Kingdoms, and along of many other things, like there was season reset, where you just there was a time where I actually enjoyed that because you just get to relive that fresh experience in the brand new season. And I just feel like there's a lot of potential in that, um, and I enjoy playing that. And there's and in terms of heroes, I think they're also unique in the sense that it's a fantasy um, lore. So there's a lot of untapped potential there in comparison to Rise of Kingdoms, where it is more on a more or less hardcore
Yeah.
history, based on hardcore history.
I think I would um like looking at the community, what they discuss, and in general, like when Call of Duty was just launched, compared to RK, um, like it had a lot of features that RK doesn't have, right? But then, to be honest, what we see, like I think the base of Call of Dragons players are actually Rise of Kingdoms players, right? So they bring certain habits to
Yeah.
Call of Dragons, and so there's this problem, like, do we still want to keep Call of Dragons unique, or it's getting more like Rise of Kingdoms? And I know that's been kind of like a discussion among the community too. So I think for the developers, like it's pretty challenging right now, right? Like, okay, like if we want to keep the players that had this big like Rise of Kingdoms background, what do we add? What do we keep unique? So like call because if people want to play Rise of Kingdoms, they just can go back and play Rise of Kingdoms, right?
That's right. You
So
tell
like
them.
what
You
makes
tell them.
Call of Dragons? So like it's pretty challenging. I feel like it's for the devs now to keep Call of Dragons unique while still bringing some features.
And speaking from personal experience, I do enjoy playing Call of Dragons, but
Mm,
I'm also like because of work reasons,
yeah.
I have to play both games. So where I find myself juggling between two projects, and there's always a time for me to choose of what I actually want to play,
Mm,
and I feel like Call of Dragons is definitely on the top of that in terms of like you're more hands-on, you're more because I feel like the graphics is all like always like smoother to the eye as well.
yeah.
So in my own time, I actually would spend a little bit more time on that.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, listen, it's breaking news. COD beats RoK. You heard it here first from Leo. No, but so okay. I mean, listen, you guys are getting me to a point right now where I could start going down some rabbit holes of just pure excitement on where I think the discussion might take us. So let me maybe throw a softball here, if I may. Leo and Asha, you were both saying things about how, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic topic. This is something like I will tell you honestly, if I ever had an opportunity to sit down with like the team of devs or even just like one dev, I cannot tell you how much I would thoroughly enjoy that. Just to like talk about the game from a development level, from a design level, from a player psychology level, trends of understanding like why things are done, and also trying to understand kind of where they're coming from. I think a big part of how we can understand the intent behind a game is almost to be able to understand and unlock the insight to the people who are making it. What's their driving force? Why did they want to make the game? Why did they intend to do it this way versus this way? Why did they choose to include this and not that? And I think being able to have a good, healthy understanding and a good dialogue and discussion about unlocking that, really kind of diving into that, picking it apart, right? Like you're taking apart a car and putting it back together to really understand how it works, I think is so fascinating. But anyways, that's my dream aside, if you will. What I will ask for you now, when you mention something as such as, we kind of between this idea of keeping COD versus trying to implement things from RoK or even from other kingdom builders, I have to imagine that either is something that's either kind of home kingdom related, which is potentially I would guess that's one of the reasons why it wasn't included initially at launch, and it's probably one of the reasons why it wasn't included or any plans were mentioned to have that within the first year. I guess I'm curious, are there things that, and obviously it depends on kind of where I want to go here, but are there things like that? Were Home Kingdoms something, if you can even speak to that were kind of a toss-up, or was something that may not necessarily have been in kind of the future plans of development, and then maybe it's something that kind of got added in with like, okay, hey, let's just kind of keep this on the table? Or was it something that was potentially kind of always being considered or always planned to be added in, but it was just a matter of kind of releasing it at the right time? And then can you even speak to anything else outside of maybe Home Kingdoms that you've heard or seen that is, oh, hey, we'd like to add this in, but we don't necessarily maybe want to impede on the authenticity, the uniqueness that is COD?
So I can answer to that.
Okay.
So I think Home Kingdoms is actually added later on at the later development stage of the game, primarily for two reasons. I feel like the first reason is definitely the community, where the community has been asking for more stable relationship in terms of alliances basically we didn't have a kingdom, so we try to provide players as a more or less of a safety net for them to get together without having to separate apart from each other. And that's more of the main driven reason. And the other reason is, I think, from the dev's perspective, is it has more to do with the stats, where players might be starting to lose interest once they're separated. So they didn't really want to go to that route, and just let players to separate from each other. So from a statistic side, it's definitely one of the reasons to add that the Home Kingdom is being added. It's quite interesting because there's always been a mixed feeling about that, because I've been reading community sentiments, like community just talking about it in general chat, or when I ask about core players about what they think, it's always a mixed reaction. So actually, I do want to ask you about this. If you're actually your perspective is on Home Kingdom later on.
Sure. No, I see what you did. You played the Uno reverse card, and now the interviewer is being interviewed. No, I see. I see how you guys snuck that in there. It was plans all along.
Yep.
No, it's funny, and obviously, feel free to slide into your boys' DMs anytime you would like. I'm always happy to have a discussion and talk about anything game related. It's yeah. I obviously, without maybe going too much in detail, I'll just say I'm very passionate about Home Kingdoms, and and one of the things I've talked early on about as it pertains to COD and this kind of idea of resets, which, to be fair, I'm very much pro reset. I know Lord of the Rings: Rise to War has a reset system. A number of other kingdom builders within the market have reset systems. Not to say it's the most popularized, as though it's done the majority of the time, but I very much like this idea of kind of creating replayability within the game without it potentially being too overbearing. And I will say, at least from my perspective, and I would argue from a number of community members that I've talked to on a regular, semi-regular basis, like some of those adjustments as it pertains to kind of scaling back the EXP grind, right? So now you kind of get your heroes to 30, and then you don't necessarily have to grind as much on that front, obviously along with artifacts as well. And just kind of scaling, I think, some of those things back. I love the idea of how, and it's funny because some of those things are kind of tossed up even when it comes to like alliance tech, right? Where it's, okay, should we reset alliance tech or should we have max alliance tech? And then it's kind of like a maintenance cost where you're just able to maintain the alliance where you can keep donating. I actually am very much okay with something like alliance tech resetting, where it kind of gives you this full range of things to do. I mean, do I think that there maybe could be some different creative approaches to it season to season? Sure. But do I like the idea that some things are either hard reset and some things are kind of soft reset and then some other things are not reset? I do. I actually think it provides a really healthy mix if it can be kind of tuned appropriately. But anyways, without, again, I could totally go down that rabbit hole for a while. I want to be cognizant of time. As it kind of moving forward a bit here, when it comes to content, Asya, excuse me, I always want to make sure I'm enunciating the name correctly here, so you're more than welcome to just shame me in direct messages later and call me out for having my grandmother would always tell me that I needed to enunciate my names appropriately. But I want to ask, when it comes to content, and I know you said that putting out content in a timely manner, making sure you either get previews or other pieces of content out, as early and as on time as you can. I'm curious, I know that there was some videos about, like, for example, I think I saw Hawkston had like a feature. There was another player, I think, that had a feature too as well in some of the YouTube content. I know this is something that some of the creators have talked about, and I know some community members have talked about kind of enjoying some of these spotlights. Can you give us any insight on if there are potential ideas around, either featuring more content creators or even featuring, kind of popularized community figures that are maybe well known for doing something or well known for having insight here or there, whether that be even outside of content creators? Are there ideas to potentially do either more player spotlights or community spotlights or just things like that, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. I think like working together with the community and making content together, that content works the best in general. Like it's a player interviews, right? Or collaboration with the creators. What we've been doing so far, like we just realized that on our official YouTube channel, we lack of some guide videos. And that's when we started doing this collaboration with some of the content creators. So basically, we ask them to, give us a guide, like a text version, and then we would just do the post editing and that. We also have been thinking about actually, the problem is that when you do official content, it's really hard to give like certain opinions, right, on the play style because in Call of Duty, everyone has its unique play style,
Yeah.
and as an official voice, we don't want to be like, hey, play like this or play like that. As a content creator, it's totally fine because everyone has its own subjective opinions. So let's say when we want to involve creators in this kind of content, we were thinking to, let's say, invite 3 to 4 content creators to share opinions on the updates, right? Or even like the migration. And actually, as a sneak peek, we are working on a video about migration right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, so somewhere soon it will be out. So that's actually, we're also thinking about like how can we collaborate with creators on this. It's
Ooh.
their opinions, right? Or giving, or like letting them to try, or like some first-hand information. So it's all in process, but as again, it's like the collaboration with the creators. It's we need to have the test version. Again, it's everything is about a test version for us right now. Yeah. So again, like as early we have those information, we can kind of plan. Yeah. So that was kind of like challenge for us. to get our hands on the information. Yeah, and like if you guys think that I know like there are some people that always like in DMs, hey, like can we know about this and that? But we're community managers, to be honest. Like maybe we get the information maybe 2-3 days earlier than you guys. It's not like.
So it was really frustrating when there was leak coming out,
Yeah.
and we couldn't like really do anything about it just to be trying to catch on to that. So
Yeah.
whenever there was a leak happen, someone trying to leak stuff, it's always more added work for us, unexpected in an unexpected way.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah,
But
it's people's fault. They're scouring the international forums or boards, and there's always going to be a number of people trying to get an inside scoop as early as they can. Even if it's not ill intended towards anyone, I can understand how that would potentially make things difficult. On your ends as well. Asya, if I can ask you something, though, you mentioned about the migration and that you're going to be coming out with something there. Migration has been a hot topic as of late, as I'm sure you both know. And I'm curious on, are you able to give us any insight within reason as how, or maybe what is the framework or what is the idea of, because again, I know we're kind of anticipating Home Kingdoms to come out in the next update, whether or not you can confirm that. Is the idea for something like the next migration phase, is that something that you can even speak to and say, well, hey, we might see that as early as the second update from now? And if so, what will that look like as it pertains to kind of same season, cross season? Are there any details, at least as it kind of speaks to what the blueprint or the framework of how that may look like coming out?
I'm not sure how much of it we can share.
Because I think the developer team is actually working their asses off right now.
Okay, if listen, if that's the answer, that's okay. Again, I'm always happy to ask, and I always will be respectfully understood. If nothing more than thank you for asking, but I just can't say anything right now is given. Totally fine with that.
but I think what we can say that it's coming pretty soon.
Okay.
You can just say that the devs are working their asses off.
Yeah.
No, listen, that's great to me. I feel like I got two things out of you guys. Devs team's working their asses off, and it's coming pretty soon. I mean, I feel like that's more than zero, and I'll take that as a win. So, again, I know we're kind of wrapping up here, and only a little bit of time left. So, with that in mind, I am curious, Leo. I know you had mentioned something about the meetup a little bit earlier. Is there any insight? Is there any sneak peek? Is there any idea? I know, again, having the meetup there, I know I was even someone amongst others who, would have loved to be able to come out to the international event. I know there has been some whispering and some rumors, of course, it's speculation, if you will, that, I think a lot of people would obviously love to see a meetup somewhere in the United States. And I'm just as much as I'm sure other players would love to see meetups, as close to them as possible as well, or in, their home countries or just somewhere closer than where it was previously held. Is there anything you can give us as far as, is the U.S., is there any consideration, whether it's confirmed, planned, or not? Is there any consideration to potentially having a meetup, whether it be in the U.S. Or somewhere else sometime in 2024? And I say this because I am so much of a fan of meetups. I mean, I used to, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I used to actually go around and I did interviewing for a while where I was a media personality, and I used to travel across the United States for a number of events that I went to for professional gaming and also for anime events and conventions that I went out and I did interviews at, and then some other entertainment events here and there. But I always loved this idea of being able, like, to me, something that almost feels amazing is like if they had a kingdom builder convention, right, where you just took like the top kingdom builders and you just basically had like an expo of them in, some convention center, and then you had all the developers kind of coming together, and you could do like panels and sessions and discussions, meet and greets, Q&As, etc. Anyways, obviously my brain is so excited just to even say these things out loud to you all. But is there any consideration as far as, or
We
anything you could tell us about that?
Yeah, we're definitely thinking of hosting a player event in the future, but we're still at the more of a observing phase where if we can see um, player activity in certain regions are um, more concentrated, we're definitely gonna have a plan in hosting an event there. And we'll because this year we actually are planning 2 or 3 events for Rise of Kingdoms because there's um, quite a lot of player activity in the US, so we're trying to plan one in the upcoming year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely try to plan one for COD as well, given the opportunity.
Okay. Okay. Now listen, once again, I will take what I can get. Thank you, thank you both for that. I guess to close things out here, as I know we're coming up to almost an hour, I guess my final question to you both, Asha, I guess we'll kindly start with you. Is there anything that you would like to either say, to acknowledge, if it's shout outs you'd like to give to anyone in the Call of the Dragons community, or even just anything that you'd like to, even if whether it's say to the community or, I guess any just kind of general final thoughts that you might have, just in the event that there was an opportunity to say something earlier.
Yeah. I think first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, it's always nice to have this talk, and I feel like humanize us more because at the end of the day, we're all just humans with our own stuff, right? Because some people, we like behind the screens, we think like, oh, like this is greater, this is Farlight stuff, whatever. But we are all humans, and then personally, I really like we just talked about the player meetup, right? And I always like player meetups because that's where you actually see the people, the actual personalities. And it's always nice to meet Call of Dragons players. We had a couple of players visiting us already this year, and it's always an amazing experience. And bossnasti, you're always welcome as well. If you have any plans, just let us know. Yeah, and in general, just yeah, keep playing Call of Dragons. It's still a pretty young game. One year, we just celebrated 1 year in March 28th. It was launched last year. Keep playing. Let's make the game better, and we'll try our best to put our effort and what we can do. Because I think our main goal here is to be able to deliver what you guys think about the game to developers in the right way, right? To just at the end of the day, I think like everyone's goal and mission here is to make the game better and keep on playing it, right? Yeah. So keep on playing, be active, and yeah, and thank you.
Oh gosh, I'm going to start crying. I'm going to have to hold it back. Thank you, Asha. Leo, I would obviously love to hear from your gentlemanly self as well on any kind of final thoughts you'd like to share. Shout outs, declarations of war, people you want to call out on the COD Discord because they're just flat out trolls. I could name a few. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you everyone for supporting us and loving the game. I know there's a lot of problems we got to work out with. I have to be brutally honest there.
Yeah.
But it is something that I genuinely feel exciting about though because we have so much passion about this community and we're willing to work and everyone is willing to work together and try to just come up with their own ideas, suggestions, feedbacks. And I feel genuinely happy that I'm able to just manage and help facilitate this community to become something better.
Yeah. And I personally want to give a shout out to your spreadsheets and Google Docs.
Oh,
They help a lot when I do patch notes, video script, because first, like sometimes I watch your videos, your feedback to the patch notes, and let's say you say, like we would like to know why this decision was made, and I'm like, what information we can give to that? It really helps a lot. All your
oh,
spreadsheets, it's keep up the good work you do.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. I two last things, if I can say, before I let you go, and thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes over. The first thing, on patch notes, and I've said this a number of times along with others, I will say that I have noticed improvements on the patch notes when it comes to the amount of detail and explanations that have been provided more as of late. And I can say I very much, and I would imagine a number of people from the community very much appreciate that. I've referenced kind of how League of Legends does their patch notes. If you look at their patch notes and you see that, it's kind of like, you get the header, the title, you get, kind of what the trend or the meta has been for that champion as an example. And then you get, what the current stats or current skills are, and then what those changes are, and then why those changes are being made. And I've always really kind of appreciated that level of breakdown. And obviously, not to say that that format necessarily needs to be copied or mimicked, but even if it's hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what we'd like to try and address, and this is what kind of the current formula is, or what the current stats or skills are, and then this is what we're changing it to. I kind of see that progression, parts of that progression happening. And, I think it's always nice because, like you guys were saying before, on being able to try and connect that insight of the developer's mission, their goal, what they had in mind initially, and trying to convey and communicate that to the community in some kind of a transparent way that allows for that bridge to be connected, I think can very much be articulated, and that can be done to a degree in that form, right, of patch notes. And I always think that's kind of like the first opportunity, because that's really the first moment where everyone is being able to see what changes are coming. And so almost being able to provide some level of description, explanation, insight, to me, I feel like is a great way to allow the community to understand a little bit more on where the team is coming from. And so I just want to say that I love that at least has been where there's been efforts that are being made on that front. Seeing the kind of King's Guard thing that I've done and am kind of putting together. I don't know if you're familiar with this yet or you saw my video on it, but basically we, at the moment we've gathered about 119 representatives from the top and active alliances throughout the entire game. And I have kind of this group channel on my Discord, and one of the things that we're doing with these players, and basically they represent the top alliances, the top players, and the players that spend the most amount of money in the game. And one of the things we're doing right now is we're putting together this questionnaire that I did a video on, and I put together just a simple Google form where we ask these representatives of these alliances, whether they're leaders, co-leaders, or an appointed R4 that maybe is the diplomacy person or someone else, asking them a number of questions on the game for feedback. And, my plan is I want to at least get 100 responses from the 119 people that we have before I kind of make a video showing off the results. And then my plan is to, of course, send it to you all and then make it public as well for people to view. I'm curious on your thoughts to my last question now, which is I kind of view this as if you were able to interview or if you were able to ask the top 100 wealthiest or richest people in the world questions on how to be financially successful, on how should I save my money, how should I invest. I kind of view it in some respects to that, where it's, we look at these people, as I mentioned, right, who represent the top alliances, the top players, and are, have the players who spend the most amount of money in their alliances. I guess I'm just curious on, this kind of goes to like that round table idea that I think Leo was mentioning before in RoK. Is something like this, and again, because I might as well ask here, is something like that, of interest? Is that something that you say to yourself, hey, this would actually be great to hear from these people who have played the game the longest, have kind of different or unique insights into a number of things about the game. I guess I'm just curious on how you feel about something like that, from your own opinions or perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, game-wise, I definitely am interested in what they want to see the game improve on. I feel like that is the most important thing right now. And the second one is what makes them stay in the game, and that is the other questions that I have in mind. And in terms of something that's outside of game, I just feel like it's such a cliche question, but I just uh, I'm just genuinely um, want to ask them if they are happy like in life, and if so, how do they achieve this level of happiness, not just wealth wise, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like finding your Zen state or your
Yes,
center.
yeah, because I do feel like mental wellness is really important for one, and I feel like when achieving this level of wealth and status, it it must be. I feel like mental wellness is also be pretty. Their mental wellness is must be a pretty at a pretty content state.
I actually think that's fantastic. I think that kind of goes into the kind of player psychology realm of one of the things that
Yeah.
I love talking about. I love discussing. For at least for me, I think it's so important to the game overall for how players approach it on a day to day lifestyle basis. But
Because Yeah, because I do, because I when I talk to a lot of players that actually spend a lot of time and a lot of money, they a lot of times they would just tell me they play the game, they play either it's Call of Dragons or Rise of Kingdoms, they play the game to just relax. So it was really confusing for me at first because this is a really competitive game. So how is that you play this game just to relax? So that really bothered me for quite a while. So yeah.
oh man, that will have to be a topic for the next time I get a chance to meet with both
Yeah.
of you. That is, man, what a note to leave it on. Well, listen, I will go ahead and close it out. Again, I know we're a decent amount of time over. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to you, Asha, to you, Leo. Thank you so much for making some time and sitting down with me. I know him. And as always, fam, until next time, we will catch you later.